Okay, great. Thanks a million. So my name is Dr. Marta Reilly from University College Dublin in Ireland. I'm here both as a researcher. I'm a researcher in sports science, biomechanics and data science in the Insight Centre for Data Analytics. I also am representing the Irish Olympic Handball Association. And finally, me and two colleagues in UCD have just formed a company called Output Sports. So today I'm going to talk about long-term athlete development with a focus on handball and also a small focus on how technology can aid long-term athlete development processes. So just like yesterday, I just wanted to point out it's a privilege to be here as a really big handball fan, and having previously played handball for Ireland with my company co-founder Julian. And I think relevant to this morning's talks, I also would like to give a shout out to Ireland's only beach handball team, because we don't get much sun, which I'm also very proud to be part of. So with regards to long-term athlete development, you really have to look at athletes in a multitude of ways. Often these can be broken into three core components: the physical, the mental and the skill fashion. So today's talk will focus on the physical, which is just part of the picture in overall athlete development in a long-term fashion. So building on from some of the keynote talks yesterday, it's really important to look at long-term athlete development over a number of phases. So this is probably the most important slide in the talk for understanding the different processes you go through when developing athletes. So at a young age, the most important thing is that when they reach their teenage years, they have really strong fundamental movements and physical capabilities that allow you to build and specify towards a certain sport going forward. So at a young age, we really recommend focusing on playing multiple sports to build a broad base, and then having a broad focus on movement and then basic functional strength as well. Moving into the teenage years then, it's really important to start teaching people to train so they understand the importance of this. But then as you progress further towards professionalism, training to compete and ultimately training to win. So with regards to this in physical development, it's no easy task to do this over a long period of time when you have to consider that there are so many physical components in an athlete. So over the period of their life, you are looking to build their anthropometrics, which they will do predominantly themselves, except for mass, their coordination, aerobic endurance, flexibility, fundamental movements, balance, strength endurance, strength, power, speed, agility, and plyometrics. So it's really not an easy task, and it's also important to understand that many of these different characteristics interact with each other as well. So it's important to put a long-term plan in place that can build the characteristics that enable you to have the best long-term success. So with regards to today's talk, I'll just talk through the physical literacy phase, the building phase, and then the elite phase with recommendations of the best approach, and then also recommendations for perhaps how testing and tracking can aid some of these processes as well. So with regards to handball physical literacy generation from ages 0 to 12, one of the most evidence-based things to do to build good physical literacy is to not have early sports specialization. So even if you have a very high performer in handball at a young age, it's been proven in multiple sports that playing multiple sports exposes you to better development and longer-term success as an athlete. Based on that, if you are kind of doing some multiple sports and movement training in games, and this can be really focused on fun. So fundamental, the focus on fun, you can use balls and you can use all sorts of games to make sure that you are teaching through the games and through the movements, squatting, pushing, pulling, throwing and kicking, for instance. And then finally, gamify. So if you are going to test and track an athlete's profile at such a young age, do it to reinforce positives, do it to identify the athletes with most needs, and really use testing as a gamification tool to motivate kids to exercise more and to really get interested in how they can develop further going forward. During this phase of ages 0 to 12, the most important thing is that the children gain a certain physical literacy. So if you are to test an athlete, we would recommend testing basic components of movement such as balance, fundamental movements like squats, lunges and single leg squats, and then flexibility in shoulders, hips, ankles and knees. Here we're aiming to achieve a basic level of functionality that can then be used to do more specified training in the future. So the real aims with these categories is to build symmetry and to also achieve minimum thresholds to basically maintain as the athlete goes forward as they get stronger and more specified towards handball in this case. Moving into the adolescence phase, at this point now the athlete should have good movement profile, and it's important then to start building more of a strength profile which can later be converted to speed, power and agility. So at this age you can start to introduce gym programs, always making sure that they're progressing safely and having a long-term view on them achieving elite performance following the age of 18 or 19 plus. At this stage, it can also be very useful to test and track performance for multiple reasons. One is to ensure that the athletes are progressing in order to reach the elite level, but the other is to identify talent. So some people during their adolescence will start to achieve certain physical capabilities which are not only due to training but also due to their natural talent. And it can be really important to notice that and really build that towards professional athlete in the future. Testing and tracking obviously adds objectivity to the processes, and it means that in the future, if you have data on the athletes, you can start to understand where were the most important performance measures and what were the highest injury risk factors for different sports, and particularly in handball, different positions, which obviously the demands are very, very different. So with regard to the testing during the adolescence phase, we recommend that you have a much more diverse testing battery, maintaining the focus on movement, flexibility and balance as previously, but adding tests for strength, power, plyometrics and speed and agility. And you can also start to look at handball-specific tests, particularly in the speed and agility fashion. If you have equipment to do so, also for strength, power and RSI, but this can be quite challenging outside of the laboratory. The key aims for this phase are to have sustainable development, so not overtraining or undertraining an athlete, to achieve minimum thresholds for performance which get people above certain injury risk factors, and to ensure that the movement learning from the physical literacy phase is maintained for athletes going forward. So during this phase, the recommendations we have, moving into the elite phase, or age 19 plus, at this point things get really specific and you're no longer training solely for sustainability and growth, you also want elite performance. So at this point, specificity becomes far more important than in the previous phases, and really focusing on position characteristics and movements becomes key. And then in terms of the actual weight room training, a really advanced focus on power and strength development to ensure optimal performance. We also recommend that at this phase, testing, tracking and moderating performance becomes much more detailed and much more regulated, because you're dealing with much more narrow margins of growth and change. The testing battery we recommend remains much the same, but what we would recommend that it becomes more regular, and also that there are handball-specific variations. So again, this is because you're dealing with more narrow margins of change and trying to minimize the risk of injury. Another key thing we would recommend is to, with all the training and all the testing, ensure that you are periodizing to peak at the most important time of year, be it the Champions League final or an international competition or the playoffs, however your league may be structured. And finally, you are focusing on making sure that these athletes are now performing at close to their best physical capacity, and that obviously is to be balanced with all the game demands and training demands of the skills in handball. So just in kind of to the last few bits to talk through are just to show technology we have to aid with the testing and tracking as athletes develop. I would have shown this yesterday, but yesterday I spoke about it with regards to power and strength endurance development. With this single sensor system we have developed, you can track an athlete's growth as they develop and quantify how their flexibility changes, how it is symmetrical and how that is maintained. You can look at their balance and make sure that they are achieving minimum thresholds of balance to be at no risk of ankle injuries. Reactive strength becomes more important as they get older. And as mentioned yesterday, then barbell velocity can be used to moderate elite performance training and even for the growth of other athletes during different phases. So just to follow on from that, just two more slides. This technology has been developed through 6 years of research and co-developed with multiple sports teams around the world, including Premier League soccer teams, NHL ice hockey teams, and also local physio clinics and strength conditioning centres. One of the things that I think is really important with regard to a long-term athlete development talk is how we intend to use the system data. In an anonymised fashion, we believe through lots of handball teams using the system, we'll be able to build a deeper understanding of the most important athlete characteristics by gender and different positions, and also start to create more specific age-related recommendations for physical performance. So you can imagine where you have different balance, jump heights, strength scores that you recommend athletes achieve as they progress through the long-term athlete development cycle. And then also we'll have a deeper understanding of what exercise programs can help you achieve these thresholds in a safe and applicable fashion in the handball context. So ultimately what we'd aim to do with Output Sports is build a long-term set of standards for physical development in handball. Just to finish up, we recommend that testing is used predominantly to make sure that athletes are achieving minimum thresholds, that it's done periodically as an athlete grows, and it's valid and reliable. We would like, especially with younger athletes, to have a long-term focus on strength and conditioning, not looking to burn them out at a young age, making sure it's sustainable, based on the fundamentals, and then later in life specialised. And finally, we think we can optimise all phases of athlete development through testing and tracking with objectivity added into the mix. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for a really nice presentation. Some questions, remarks? Do we have? No? During the break. But really, it was a really nice presentation. So, we would continue. I invite next presenter, Tamás Mocsai. Hello. Nice to meet you too. The structure of NEKA.
This is working, but it's not from us. It's from
Lars Mocsai?
Yes, yes.
Your opponent.
Really?
So,
Yes.
yes, my name is Tamás Mocsai. It's nice to meet you. It is. I want to present you a project in Hungary. I'm the manager of the National Handball Academy in Balaton-Boglár. We work with 140 kids at the age between 14 and 21. They live there. But I want to give an insight how it is, where we do and what we do. Just start first with a small video. First of all, I want to tell you that this time at handball is really interesting. I think I played in the Bundesliga for 10 years. I played for the national team also for 15 years. The time has changed. There are different demands for coaches, for players, because of the new techniques. We need new guys who can help the coaches. It's not always the eye of the coach. We need to support them and go to the future. I think I'm here because I want to tell you, I think we have to work together because it is handball and there are different sports. If you look at the Olympics, then it is handball. It is not so easy to stay at the Olympics, to stay focused. We have to work together because there are many different sports, and we have to take the children to handball, because if not, they go to esports or they make different sports, and then we won't be that successful in the future. So that's we are developing handball. That's what we do. In Hungary, in the middle of Europe, we have many nations around us. The academy is directly at the lakeside. It is great, as you saw in the video. We have great opportunities, great chances to perform, to help the kids, to develop the kids. Our strategy, our mission, I want to tell you is, first of all, we want to develop sports. We want to develop the way of thinking. We want to develop the kids, the coaches. For that, you need great infrastructure. You need great methods. You need great coaches. And also, you need kids. We have everything there. And therefore, we invite you all to come to Hungary, see what we do, and let's work together, because that's good for us. I think, and I believe, with our model, we want to make a training model. We can train in the morning and the evening. We have contract to schools. So we can make a modern philosophy on handball. To develop a culture, an academic system, to raise the human being as a whole. They come to us at the age of 14, they leave at 18, 19 with an A level. Maybe they will be perfect handball players. Many of them will be stay in handball and help us in the future. In the MBA, many of the stars, they support 10 years later the academy or the university where they grew up. So, what is important to develop handball? It is important to have a scientific background, to change everything, to be open-minded, to make everything better. Our organization, I believe that we need sport experts for all tasks. So we have 13 coaches. We have coaches for weightlifting. We have physiotherapists. We have doctors. We have scientists in the background. We also have 10 teachers who help after school with the school, help them in maths, in physics, in sports, to graduate, to learn. Because we believe that good sportsmen, they have to be good at school, and we have to develop them individually as a personality, and more important, to be a great character on the sports field. Also, we make facility management and boarding school, as I told you. Mainly in Hungary, it is a great time to change things. The government supports us, so we get money from the government also. Naturally, we have also sponsored, and okay, this is the government subsidies. It's really important. Our training model, how we work. Our coaches understood that selection is the most important part. If they want to be successful, they need good kids there. So we make tests with them. After that, with the methodology, they come into NEKA. We make, as yesterday, András and Martin taught 3 or 4 times tests, mainly in the summer, in December and May. We have the results from that, and after with this result, the coaches, the sports coaches, also the weightlifting coaches, they made a personal, individual training plan for the kids, and then we start the year. I think this is the future, and that's how we have to go. Performance management, this is the synergies between disciplines. This is something difficult. When I played the Bundesliga, we had one coach, and we had one physiotherapist, and the coach did everything. We have to change this. If you go around, if you go to individual sports, well, there are many people in the NBA, in the NHL. There are 10 coaches, 15 coaches to help the manager, really, to improve the game. So I believe that's the future. The whole person education, not from everyone will be a handball player. but we have to help them to develop as a character also. I want to have a handball player who can stay out, work hard, play hard, and make the right decision. In handball and in life also. Because that's the main aspect, I think. We have to teach them. We have to help them to develop that way also. So we have group session, individual sessions. We have also sport psychologists there to help them. We also nutritionists there to make them understand why to do, how to do something. We have also curriculum with the schools contract. They go to school at 3 times a week between 10 and 2:30. And so they can train in the morning from 7 o'clock and in the evening from 3:30. So this is great. And the boarding school, our teachers, we have 10 teachers. They help them, as I told you, if they need help because they were not at school because of the national team or of the games. The culture, I believe that we need ethics, we need codes, because we have values in sports. We have to give them. In the modern world, many kids, they don't know the way, where to go. In the academy, you can tell them, okay, this is the right direction. Because of sports, you have to fight, you have to work hard, you can be successful, you can, your dreams can become true. So I think this is responsibility from us, and also show them how to take themselves responsibility, the whole personal education, it's also important. And also we have sport experts relationships, because we started a program 3 years ago with schools, 10 schools, there are 400 children. We give them some thematics, we help them to play handball, to like handball, to just come us, visit us, and get inspired. Training camp at NEKA, this is in the film you saw. I think this is great conditions in the summer or during the year. Ferencváros, Győr, or Rostov-Don, they come us for training camp. It was nice to work together, to give them also scientific feedback because of the tests, and that way also help them. Besides the youth handball national teams, they came to our facilities. Some of our coaches are of the coaches of the under 17, under 18. So I think we take a part of the successful development of youth handball, especially in women. Healthcare provider, that's also the future. Okay, this is at the moment mainly financed by the government, by the state, but in future maybe we have to earn money. So this is maybe a chance to be as a provider, to develop also sports in that way, but also to get on the market and have people to know themselves better and give them with this, our scientific stuff, with the diagnostic, to live a better life. We have a modern tour park. As my coaches told yesterday, Catapult is one of them, but we have well, many things. So this is, I think, also great. In 6 years, my father founded this academy 7 years ago. We work now 6 years. We had quite a lot of success because we work together, because we are open-minded, and of course we have the possibility to make something great in handball. Thank you for your audience.
Thank you very much. Really interesting. We are jealous a little bit. Some questions, please, Herbert.
At the moment from Hungary, but I'm really open-minded to that for kids from other countries also come, because they have a different motivation. They have different way of thinking, and I think the next 2 and 3 years they are welcome. And I want to make, maybe open a little bit for X% of the athletes to come to us and work together. The same with coaches also, because now Hungarian coaches work there, but handball is international. So I think that's the future. Hungarian? Yes, the language is not so easy at school. But yes, it's true. But okay, the school then it's difficult, and we have to teach in English. Well,
This is next step, to have this in English maybe. Some more questions? If, yeah, please.
Not that the kids, they come from all over Hungary to the academy, so they move there. And in Hungary, also in Europe, when 14, you change the school mainly. And I think before 14, they're too young. They need the parents. 14 is also not that easy, but that's true. Many of the clubs, they take children at the age of 12, 13, but I think that's quite early.
The children are invited, or they can choose and come by themselves, or both?
We have a selection. We have open days, and everybody can come. We had it in October this year. At the woman, there were 180 kids, but also we select and invite kids, talented kids.
Talented one. How much do they have to pay?
In Hungary, at the moment, it's free.
Lucky kids, lucky parents. Nice story, really, for handball. Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to invite next presenter. This is our friend Pedro from Portugal. He will explain us one approach to the phenomenon of handball players' retention of Portuguese context.
Okay, good morning. For the ones who were in my last two presentations, now I will not speak about technology. Now it's a completely different context. We are speaking about, well, an approach to the phenomenon of handball players' retention in Portuguese context. First of all, not only for polite reasons, but I would like to present my colleagues who are not here, because the characteristics of them were very important for this study. Pedro Sobreiro, his research subject is statistics and informatics. Pedro Carvalho is from sport management. Well, me, it's handball. And Sonia Morgado, she's from the area of economics and marketing. This is important, or was important for us for this study, because you know this subject. There are many studies about this, about the retention of handball players and about dropout. And I give you here three very short references. There are, and even today in the morning and in another presentations, you have many variables that we are always working so that the players or the future players stay at handball, like athletic, academic, vocational, and so on. Some recent studies are saying that one variable that is very important in retention is the date of birth of the athletes. And other studies speaks about gender, and the difference between girls and boys, but at the end there is a gender equality in an adult environment when we are speaking about retention. So we went one step behind about all of this. Of course, in the future, and I hope you and other researchers can use this data or this kind of data, and then go again to the reasons about the dropout or the retention. And this was the aim of the study. And this was the thing where we think we are different. The first is about the methods. This is not a sport method. It is the first time that I'm not saying in the world, maybe others are already using this in the sport, but this is a method that is well used in economy. For example, you have a phone, and the industry of phones want to know, mobile phones want to know if the battery will prolong during 2, 3, 4 years. So there are many variables. The way you use your mobile phone, the way you use the data, the way you use streaming, and at the end you have the probability how much time the battery will can be used. The same supermarket. Every day you go to a supermarket, after 2, 3 years the supermarket know when you are going, if you are not going anymore, what you were shopping, what you were not shopping. So this survival analysis, this test, we want to understand with all the data we had during 20 years. So we are speaking from all the athletes between August 1997 till July 2018. So there are quite a lot, our sample. It was all the handball players that we have during these 20 years registered at our database in the Portuguese Handball Federation. So what we wanted to understand statistically and mathematically is when they are dropping out, when they are staying. We didn't study the reasons why they are doing this. We look to the dates, we have the date of birth, which club where they are playing, when they registered for the first time, when they went out, if there was a change of region, and so on. I'm pretty sure in all the federations from your countries, you have the same formulary every time a player or a new player is registering. There is a lot of information. And I can tell you this because we are not at this stage. As much as you have more information about the players, this test, this statistical test, takes in count all these variables. So if you have 10, he will take 10 variables in count. If you have 25, he will deal with the 25. And at the end, he will give the probability of this, what will happen. Okay. And I must tell you, and this is the first time we are presenting the results. I even didn't present them yet to the board of the Portuguese Handball Federation, where I'm also vice president, because they were pretty a shock for us, because my expectations were completely different, and now that I have the results from the last 20 years, there is a lot of things that we need to think in our country. And this is the most shocking thing. After 1 year, in these 20 years, there was only a probability of 56% that the player stays in handball. This means 43 or 44% are dropping out after 1 year. Of course, now we will need to try to understand the reasons. But if he stays 2 years, he has a probability only to staying for 41% at the sport. So after many years, the probability of staying there is on 24%. So this means that with the years, we are losing a lot of players. And my expectations were completely different. I thought it was the opposite. Every year we were passing, we have more players, or they are staying more time. But it is not what happened in this period. I'm only speaking about 20 years. When we go for the gender, as you see, after 3 years, is basically the same. Here a little more between male and woman, 4% difference. But then after, well, in the second year is where the more dropouts are, or the difference of dropout between men and women, and then it's more or like stable. Inside Portugal, and this is just an example, I will go forward and then, so we have from all regions of Portugal, and what we have, maybe all of us, all of you heard about ABC, it's one of the top teams in Portugal, it's from region of Braga. And this is another region south from Lisbon, the region of Setúbal. Here you can see that in the first year players stay more time in Braga or have more probability to stay in handball than compared to Stubal. What we think, and okay, we could see here, and for me this is very important to try to understand all around Portugal, where are the most difference, where we have more players staying after some years, where we are losing players. So as a conclusions, the first, I leave it to you and for other researchers to continue to see this. Which reasons we have for these dropouts? We have inside, we must try to understand this. We must see in other countries reasons, and there are a lot of studies in there of psychology concerning this. As I told you, this is what shocked me. Not the ones who are staying, but what happens in the first year. Almost 50% of the players who play for the first year in Portugal handball, after 1 year, they are leaving the sport. Why? What is happening? What we think is also the positive way. Why are players staying in handball? So this could explain why we are losing. So we can have a negative approach to try to understand why they are going out, or a positive approach, why are they staying? And of course, again, saying this, there must be, or we should find relations between this survival probability and the psychological and social variables. So my challenge for you all, including me, is how is it in your country? Can you have access to the data for the last 20 years? Do you have the same problems? If yes, we should discuss the problems that we have in common. If no, what are you doing better in the first year? What are you doing better in the second year? In the different regions, is it the same here in Cologne, or in Munich is also different, like Braga comparing to Setúbal? Is the same in Ireland, in Scotland, or is different? And they are very tight. You know, Portugal is a very small country, and even in a small country, you have this big difference that I show you. So maybe in bigger countries, bigger difference, or not. And we really need, I think, that's why, and I will finish saying this again, that's why I'm telling you we must go a step behind. One thing is very important to understand how to deal with this. The other thing is we cannot say, and I was maybe one of the persons who were saying, we are not losing so much players, or maybe more this club because they are not working so good. But when you have 120 people analyzed, 1,000 people analyzed, so it's too much people, or too big sample for what is happening. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you very much. Questions, please? What is true that we have the same problems? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If not, I'm inviting next presenter. Is already here, Csaba Okros. Okay. Did I pronounce well? Okros? Okay. Thank you. He will speak about load parameters associated with coach matches using microsensor technology. Watch.
Thank you. So it's a great pleasure and honor for me to make a presentation for you here. My name is Csaba Okros, and I am a senior professor in the University of Physical Education in Hungary. I came from Budapest. The reason is why I'm here is to introduce a brand new game. It's a Hungarian innovation. We named Catch, which is just belong to the handball, and we are familiar with the team handball. So we would like to introduce it. First of all, I'd like to say a few words about the main rules. Yesterday we put table and teams at the entrance. So if you saw that, it's very good because you can imagine what I'm talking about. But the main rules are, it's very important, the table, which seems like a table tennis table, but it's curved on the surface. You can see two teams are playing, 3 players in both sides. I mean, we divided them attackers and defenders. 2 attackers are standing in one side of the table and the defender on the other side. It's the main reason to play is getting points. It means that minimum 1 pass necessary on the side of the attacker raise, and maximum after 3 passes you have to throw it onto the other side. There is only just 1 bounce probably happens on the table, and the aim is for the opponents not to catch it after this 1 bounce. You can see here we make points. After 4 points there is a winning game. You need 2 winning game to get a set, and after 2 sets the match is yours. The aim of the study, as catch is a new and developing game, we know a little about demands of the players' physical activities, and of course we have previous data about team handball, and because these 2 games is very similar, we can compare to each other. I will focus on the external and the cardiovascular loads of the players. Here you can see my method of the research, and you can see the details just right now. The sample we made with 2-man player, you can see there the age, height and weight averages of the players. 2 matches on 2 consecutive days. It means 4 matches we measured. In 1 day there was 1 hour rest between the matches, and each match consisted of 2 sets, each set broken into 3 games. The reason why we make so close the matches, because we have challenger competitions, and some it is happening on 2 or 3 days, so it's very often need to make a game for the players, and that's why we didn't extend it longer. The external load measurement happens by Catapult T6. Yesterday we mentioned a lot, so the 3 microsensors in it, and combining these infos we try to capture the high intensity micro movements like acceleration, deceleration, changing directions or jumps. Here you can see the measurements for the internal load. We made a pre-measurement with a 50-meter shuttle test for the players to determine the maximum heart rate of the players. We use Polar Team 2 belt, and we got this using last stage of the shuttle run test was that, and different heart rate zones we put them, the players and the averages. On the other hand, the capillary blood lactate was measured from a fingertip. It was not made by me because I collapsed if I see a little blood, so don't be afraid. It was measured 3 times during before the match, in the halftime, and after the end of the match, after 2 minutes, and we used that devices. And now comes the data, sorry, I put it too fast. This is the average values of the high-intensity events. It is the final amount for that. Here you can see the matches, the list of the match, the durations, the averages, the standard deviations. The highest point is with the acceleration, and one data is important for us. The all of the high-intensity events happens from that occasions. It was for the players for during the matches. The next one is we put it normalized to the net playing time. So here is I make your attention to this number because we will compare it to the handball datas. It happens, you know, it shows us the percentage of total net playing time spent in different heart rate zones. It's based, that I mentioned, on the individual maximum heart rate on the field test that we got. It's very interesting that they are being in this category. And one more thing that you can see that from on the first and second match, I mean on the first day, they were in a higher rank, higher category, and there is an extremely going down. Of course, it happens for the fatigue. And the last one is the lactate, capillary blood lactate values before, in the break, and after the match. It's normally, I got a data here. You can ask me honestly, I cannot say the answer. Probably between the third and the fourth match happens something. Maybe they didn't do the normal protocol of breaking, so I don't know why it happens, but it's keep on. It's going down, but keep on. So we need to investigate further about this thing. Okay, this is a project, so this is the first steps in it, and we can do with the catapult a lot of other things. For example, we can see the movements directions divided to directions. The different colors means different players, and this is the first day two match, the first and the second match, and you can see if you compare to each other that is much wider in depth in straight or back directions. And one more thing, the blue colored player is making the most intensive works. As I said, this is the next round in our survey that we want to take connections with the technical and tactical movements. Okay, discussion about the external load. Catch players executed, you can see 2.7 high intensity event, which is comparable but lower than the previous suggested elite Norwegian teams. The Norwegians made 3.9, even though their playing time was similar, almost 33 minutes to the like the catch play. The bigger differences was the number of decelerations per minute as catch players executed 0.7, the handball players 2.3. Internal load, we can make the catch was 145 BPM, equaling 47% of the individual maximum heart. Previous studies with the team handball players showed us that they were between 70 and 86%. But it depends on, in this study, the gender, the age and the position. it often happens then the team handball players spend more than 50% of their playing time of 80% of their maximum heart rate, which suggesting a high aerobic demand. Catch placed lower cardiovascular demands on the players. You can see here the data of it. I have to hurry because I just a little. Okay, high intensity. My main finding were high intensity event in a minute was comparable, but somewhat lower than during a handball game. Cardiovascular load was also lower than during a handball game. Moderate lactate values indicate the anaerobic lactic energy system also plays role in catch, although during short rallies, anaerobic lactic system be the dominant energy system. In conclusion, catch might be an interesting and complementary training method for team handball players to enhance their abilities in specific skills and techniques in the subject. So if we measured the same players in handball and catch, I think much be better data will come, but as well at the moment we don't have handball players who are playing catch so good like our animators. We need more and further investigations, so this is the first pilot of our investigation survey and we are going on. It also be interesting to measure female players in catch and team handball also. And there is one more thing, that there's no body contact in the catch, so maybe it's comparable with the beach handball because same rule happens over there also. Here are my references, and we just put some or concept or aim is to, you can see the catch is the meaning inside a quality alternative training concept of handball. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Really creative. Congratulations for a nice presentation, really. Some questions? Maybe about catch and methods? If not...
They shocked, I think. So.
But it's really interesting. Thank you very much, Csaba. Okay, and from catch, we will turn to elite handball. Next presenter is Claude Kercher. Did I pronounce well? Okay. Thank you. Elite handball.
You take your own laptop? Yes.
So, hello everybody. I'm happy to present you our pilot study on the determinants of shooting velocity in elite team handball players. So, as you may know, in handball, throwing from a wide position and from a longer position is very useful. So, just before, I was a bit too quick, sorry about that. So, just, sorry, why? So, nevertheless, so you have here some numbers that I found in the EHF reports from the Final Four in Cologne last year. So here's the number of very huge. I don't know really the accuracy of the data, but however, you can see that throwing harder the ball in handball is quite the ultimate weapon, because then you have a lot of more possibility regarding the tactics and for the games. So here is the rationale about our study. So you have, as you may know, it was shown previously in the literature, the shooting velocity is an important factor, especially for the back players. And it's also a complex task. Could have a wide variety of type of shots. It has been also shown that the upper body and the maximal strength play a big role in the shooting velocity, as well as the upper body dimensions. And for the lower body, it's a bit more complicated because some studies have shown that it's related, some others don't have. So that's also one of the reasons we have tried to do this study. And the other, and the other studies that have been done in this field have been done in heterogeneous population with male, female, with different level and with different background. So most of the studies are training studies. Training studies are very good, but sometimes there are some other parameters or factors that can impact the training outcomes, like the fatigue or nutrition or playing status or a lot of stuff. So we plan to do these cross-sectional studies, and we also try to study all the characteristics together. So we investigate a wide variety of shooting velocity determinants. So for example, we assess nine variables in the upper body strength and power, some jumping tests like horizontal jump, vertical jump, one leg, two legs. We also assess some running parameters, mostly sprinting, also some upper body characteristics, some upper body goniometry. And we try to see if they're related to the shooting velocities, in shooting velocity in 3 different tests. So here you have the results in the different categories. You have here the goniometry, here the upper body strength and velocity, the upper body anthropometry. Here is the shots, so standing shots, run shots, and jump shots. And here's the lower body results. So you have the mean, the standard deviation, and the coefficient of variation of each test that we have done. So for the results, here is the values represented as R magnitudes with the 90% confidence correlation. So as you may know, we have a lot of data. We only show the higher correlation coefficients above 0.5. So what's mainly our result is that we have a lot of parameters in the standing shots, like the upper body goniometry, the upper body strength and power, the upper body anthropometrics. For the running shots, we have the upper body strength and power, the upper body goniometry, and for the jumping shots, we have some relationships with the upper body strength and power, and some with the 10-meter sprints. But it's not very clear because with the other legs parameters, it's not that clear. So what's the main outcome with these first results is that the upper body strength plays a major role in the shooting velocity, but what was a bit surprising is that the pulling exercise or the pulling results are as much important as the pushing exercise. That was a bit surprising for me, but so is the result of our multiple logistic regression equation. So here you have the R of the strength of the relation. So here you have the percentage of variance that is explained by our equation, and this is if you want to compare the equation one to one another, you can. So as you may see, the shooting velocity in handball is still very complicated with a lot of different complex tasks. So we need surely more data and more a wider population to translate all these results. But we can also question ourselves to why we didn't find any relation between the legs and the upper body, because in the coaching, in our coaching background, we know all that the stronger the legs you have, the stronger you shoot, the higher you should shoot with a better velocity. Sorry. So maybe the missing link is the core training, but we don't know yet really how to assess it very clearly and with good numbers. So so maybe this was already said before that the more you are increasing the complexity of the task, the less determinant on parameters you have. For example, in the standing shots, we have a lot of parameters, but when we are looking in the jumping shots, we have much more less parameters that are correlated with our test. So this highlights the fact that there are much more determinants that we didn't find to assess yet. So surely we need something to assess more clearly and more exactly the core muscles to know if really they play that important role to transfer the force between the ground to the arm for the shooting velocities. So the next step will also to focus more on the back players, because they are the players that are the more involved in this type of shots, and it's not, for example, the wing players didn't shot exactly with the same technique, and shooting with some higher velocity is not that important for this kind of players. The same for the pivot. So we need to focus more deeply on the back players. So that's for me. Thank you to my colleagues. I'll be happy to answer any question.
This was a really important topic. Not questions during the breaks, probably. Thank you very much, really, for a nice presentation. And now we are going to motivation in elite handball. Presenter is Taha Souli.
Hello, good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. I am Taha Souli. I'm very happy to be here. I should like to present my article, Peculiarities of Motivation and the Activity of Professional Handball Players. The motivation for sport achievements is one of the most important factors in sports activities of professional handball player. Their success and performance throughout their whole career depend on their motivation. Our research was conducted to establish the interrelation between the social and personal factors of play activity of professional handball players. Based on it, we determine the most efficient means of forming the sports achievements motivation. The subject of the research were 23 professional adult handball players. The experimental group consisted of 16 high qualified professional handball players. For control group consisted of 7 reserve handball players. In our research, we used the tests developed by Leontev methodology of life purpose orientation, and async methodology for temperament determination, and last one, Ehlers methodology for diagnostics of personality for the motivation to succeed, and methodology for diagnostics of personality for motivation to avoid failures. For slide 3, as you can see on slide 3, the data in figure 1 show that the highest priority for the experimental group is the health 81.3 and wealth 75%. The study of the same parameters in the control group has shown that their priorities are life comfort 57.1% and wealth 57%. The methodology of life purpose orientation was used to identify the system of values of the professional handball players. The comparative results of the selection of LPO of the control group and experimental group are represented in figure number 3. This data were pursued use the multifunctional criterion features. The comparative results of the control and the experimental group are presented in table 1. For slide 5 shows the results of the methodology for temperament determination by async. The results of the interviews with the handball players in the experimental group have shown that 50% of the players belong to choleric melancholic, 37.5% choleric, and 12.5% sanguine choleric. The data are presented in table 2. Okay. As you can see in table 3, 71% of the interview in the control group were choleric, 29% were choleric melancholic. The data are presented in table 3. For slide 7 show the results of the methodology for diagnostics of a personality for motivation to avoid failures by Theodore Ehlers. The data obtained in the experimental group are given in table number 7. The results of the methodology for diagnostics of personality for motivation to avoid failures in the control group are shown in table 8. For conclusion, the results of the study use the LPO methodology have shown that the priorities of life values of the highly qualified handball players in the experimental group and the reserve handball players in the control group differ. The most considerable difference were obtained in 3 criteria: comfort, wealth, and health. The criterion comfort was observed in 57% in the interview in the control group and only in 18.8% of the interview in the experimental group. The criterion wealth was important for 57.1% of the interview in the control group, was important for 57.1% of the interview in the control group. But for the interview in the experimental group, it was important for 75% of the interview. The most considerable difference in the interview in the importance was obtained during the evaluation of the criterion health, 81.3% in the experimental group and 28.6% in the control group. The results of the study use the temperament identification methodology allow to draw a conclusion that the control and the experimental group of the interview were homogeneous and considerable difference between them on the temperament priorities were not observed. At the same time, in the interview from the control group had a more distinct influence into neuroticism than the sportsmen in the experimental group. The results of the study used the methodology for diagnostics of the personality's motivation to succeed and methodology for diagnostics of the personality's motivation to avoid failures have shown the degree of motivation to succeed and motivation to avoid failures for the interview in the control and experimental group differ. This proves that the attitude for highly effective play activity prevails for the highly qualified handball players, and the striving for success prevails over the striving to avoid failures. The sportsmen in the control group, on this contrary, are more disposed to motivation to avoid failures rather than motivation to succeed. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much for interesting and complex topic. Yeah, but it's nice, always interesting. Motivation. Some questions, please? No? Yeah, we are more or less without questions. I hope that we discuss during the breaks. So now I would turn to other topic, to velocity again. Maria, where we are? Maria Luisa Estrella, yes, I know. I know, Luisa. Maria Luisa. Yeah, yeah, here is written Maria. And it's nice, Maria also. Yeah. Okay.
Hello to everybody. I'm Luisa from Portugal. I work at Porto University. I am a handball teacher there. I was a handball player and also a coach. I attended all the conferences except one, and I have to confess that it's a less interesting topic that I present here from my perspective. But anyway, it is part of a study of two other students that are our students from the university. And this is a very simple study and a preliminary study about the effect of resin and ball size on the throwing velocity. Well, you probably are aware that the International Handball Federation is intending to prohibit the resin in handball. The reason why they are looking for a technical solution for this problem is because there are lots of sports halls where the handball is not allowed because the resin is not allowed. There is lots of problems, cleaning problems, and lots of problems with other sports. So the Federation is trying to find a technical solution for this problem. But we also know that maybe several coaches and several players are a little bit worried about this because maybe this will change the game, maybe this will affect the speed of the ball, maybe this will affect the tricky shots that we love to see, like the spin shot. So we are a little bit aware of this. That's a summary based on what was recently published by the International Handball Federation. These regulations were already approved. You can get it on internet. And in summary, you can see that while they decrease the idea for the balls without resin is to decrease the size and the weight. And in fact, the change is equal for size 2 and for size 3. It means that in absolute terms, the change for girls, for female players, adult players, and for male are the same. Well, in the first conference that I attended in Austria, the European conference, there was a study presented by a group of research from Spain, and at the time, and they measured lots of Spanish players, female and male players, and their results were that the official ball sizes for girls, for females, should be downsized. They based their research on the hand size, and like they measure the kind of index, coverage index, so they proposed that they should, the ball for the girls should be downsized. But at the time they didn't look for the resin effect. That's why I'm coming again to this topic. Well, we did this study 2 years ago. Well, all of these studies were preliminary studies because we were preparing another study, so we wanted to know how many players we should evaluate, how many shooting attempts, and so on. So these are preliminary studies only. This was, in this study, we used old balls that are not so good for hand gripping. The balls are changing, have changed a lot during the last years. So this was old balls and used balls. And in this case, we used only one single session. We had 10 handball male players, junior and adult categories, although they were quite good players in this case. We did about 7-meter throws, well, with a standard, obviously with a standard overhand throw to be comparable. And they did first without resin, then with resin, because they had to clean the hands, so it was a limitation at the time. And well, then we used obviously a randomized order. We used to measure the speed, well, the all-known radar, and we used glue. In this case, we used this glue, but we all know that the players are aware of the glue type, because also there is an issue related with the type of the glue that they're using, because the players prefer certain type of glue. I'm not here making any kind of publicity to glues or to balls, but there is also an issue about that. Okay, then more recently, we did 2 other pilot studies. We started with players from our 2nd national division. We used a sample of male and female players, and I have to tell you, maybe you are aware of that, in fact, these 2 divisions in Portugal are not really comparable, because the players are a much higher level than females because of economical and social problems. That's our reality. But in this case now we did much more 7-meter throws. We did 15 with each ball, and we did it in a randomized order. And each group, we had 2 groups, and each group did first in a session with glue and then without glue. And we had a 2 days minimum of interval between the 2 sessions. Okay, let's go to the results. In the first study with old balls, we saw an effect of 22% in the speed of the ball. Then now with the better balls and new balls, they just were used for the first time for this study. So these are better balls, the balls that we are using in our university, where we cannot use resin. And yes, and they are suitable to play without resin. And here we saw an effect only of about 9%. And with girls, it was interesting because the effect was lower, and we will expect an upper effect. Maybe this is because they are not so skillful. That's the reason. And the throwing velocity was not so consistent. And it's interesting to see that with ball size 1, well, the effect is really low. It means that they are adapted to this ball. They don't need the resin to be adapted. Because if I need resin to play faster, it means that there is a problem with the ball size, for sure. And when we compare this, and this is consistent, we always find this, with males, when we measure the throwing speed, there is no difference when they shoot with the size 2 in comparison with the size 3 with resin and without resin. And we saw the same effect for girls when we use the size 1 and the size 2 with or without resin. And because they did a lot of throwing in each session, we could look a little bit to the fatigue effect. What happened when they do so many throws at a time during this sequence? And what we saw here for male, and this is interesting, you saw here when they shoot with size 3 with resin, you can see a decrease in the speed of the shooting. It means that for me, it's a fatigue effect. But on the other hand, when we look to the shooting without resin, they increased the speed, generally speaking. Well, for me, it looked like an adaptation, acute adaptation process that's going on because they're not used to play with the ball like that, although these are good balls for gripping. So, as a summary, when we look to all the results, we can see here always for the male players, well, that we can see a variation during these throwing sequences. Well, so a negative variation, so it means that there is probably a fatigue effect. But when we look to the girls, and I have to underline again that they, well, we have more problems with here's the experience of handball in this group, and they are not so good as the male players, although they are also from the second division. Well, we could not see this. We could not see, well, there was no fatigue. Well, maybe in this case we can see here a learning effect, but when we look to all of them, well, this is not comparable with the males. So maybe we should look to this with more detail. Now we look specifically for the girls. Well, we also had other tests. We did hand grip, we all know this hand grip strength training, and we also measured the hand size, and we looked to the gain, we were focused with resin, and we looked to the speed gain based on the resin effect, and well, we couldn't see a relation between the hand grip strength of these girls and also the hand size and the speed gain effect based on the effect of the resin. Well, our preliminary results suggest that for adults, banning the resin usage should be accompanied by a more significant reduction of the handball sizes if similar shooting velocities are to be preserved. But I have to underline again that I only did this 2 sessions. So we are looking to an acute effect, how it will be when the players are learning, are training with other balls for a long period. Maybe you will see another kind of adaptation, maybe. So maybe the sizes that the Federation is proposing are okay, I don't know. I don't know any studies about that. I know that they did some studies, but I think they are not published yet. So, but in reality, I think more biomechanical and formal studies are needed with other handball populations, including players with different stages of maturation, playing skills, experience, and so on. So this was only a preliminary or pilot study, and in the end, for me, it was interesting. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting again. Some questions in this topic? No, it's everything clear? Okay. Okay, then we turn to youth handball, under 11. The next presenter is Malte Neist Larsson. This is about effect of game format.
While we're getting the presentation ready, I think we could all use a little exercise. So I think we should just stand up, have a chance to stretch your legs while we wait to start. And maybe if you have the space around you, you can also do a little swinging, or else just lift your legs. I think that would be helpful for all of us. There's still more than half an hour left before any of us has the chance to go out and play some handball maybe.
And you are under 11 as well?
Yeah. I would say something
Is
about...
this one?
Yes, please. those who are under 11, but as I just came from the other room, there was presentations that handball was conducted successfully for all ages, whether they were experienced like most of you probably, or unexperienced like myself, since I've never played any handball. But a lot of football and a lot of investigations in the effect of being formats in youth football, and now also with this study in I think I'll just talk about it. Does this will work? Yeah. Thank you. I'm called Marta, as I was presented. I work at the University of Southern Denmark, the Dense, Frowin, in the middle of Denmark. You have a country with the great tradition for team handball, and also because of that, a huge number of youth members in the clubs, and a youth organization that will develop all the time. And of course, a study like this is initiated to evaluate the effects of youth handball in the clubs where we used to produce good handball players, but also for the federation in Denmark and for the society in Denmark. It's of great importance to also just make sport that is fun to participate in, and that you want to stay active in sport for the whole life, in terms of reducing the costs for the health care system. So this is the setting. We want to make a handball place, but we also want to develop the game to be fun and attractive for the children and the youth players to stay in. And luckily, a lot of Danish children are participating in sports, in voluntary clubs, and we see that if you play handball, if you are above this line, then you have a higher frequency of living up to the official recommendation of being physically active enough. So if you are playing handball in your leisure time twice or more per week, then we see in the statistics that you live up to the recommendation in a better way than if you are not sports active. But if you are only active in handball once per week, then you're just as physically active as we see those who are not active in a sports club in their leisure time at all. Whereas, on the other hand, soccer, we see that with only one participation per week in a soccer club, then you are more active than the non-sports active. And when some of our colleagues evaluated this, they were giving in the discussion the idea that being a footballer, despite you only play one time per week in the club, then you are more active also during the day in schools, where there are a lot of opportunities to play football. You only need the ball, actually, whereas in handball, the tradition, at least in Denmark, it's not that often that you see children in the schoolyard or in the areas where people live playing handball just one without organized by the teacher or by a school. And that might be because the final version of the game, 6 players versus 6 plus a goalkeeper in each end, played on an indoor pitch that is somehow technical and tactical demanding compared to football, where you see a lot of children playing. If you are a 6 person that wants to play, then you play 3 versus 3. If you are 4, just play 2 versus 2 and things like that. It's more obvious to organize, and that's also perspective. Once again, as a background for initiating the study, we will look at the above median split, those who had the highest number of actions, when we looked at the full match, 413 players, or at the 8 versus 8, which was the traditional way of organizing under 10 football. Then we saw that the players who were already very involved, had a lot of actions, they had more actions when lowering the number of players, but especially those who were not that involved when being many players, when we looked at the way they ran and sprinted, we saw that the number of high-speed runs was higher when using the large size, 5 and 6 players. Again, the same picture, that also what makes the higher total amount bigger. So we have more high-speed runs and more sprints, and I think to develop the handball players, we like those kind of activities. So in terms of this, we should be careful of reducing the big size too much, because then they won't have this part of the game in there. And this is the boys here, and the same picture for all the girls. Even those only tendencies, statistically speaking. Then on the other hand, we also at some point want to make the training the high aerobic load, in terms of high rate when training, to develop the aerobic capacity of the players. And when looking at that, we saw no statistically differences in these high heart rate categories that we are most interested in. There are differences here when looking at heart rates below 180, but we don't care that much of this, because we know if we want to develop players with high aerobic power, we need to do some training with very, very high heart rates. We're more interested in this. And we don't see any statistical differences, but I think we see tendencies that playing on the short pitch with a low number of players, there's a tendency that they have more time spent in this high heart rate show. So that's, on the other hand, give the argument to play on the shorter pitch, because you have high heart rates playing with that. When looking in total at all these physical activity patterns, when comparing the boys and the girls, we see that in most of them we see no differences at all. Some points we see that the boys sprints more, maybe because we define it with the same absolute value, 8 kilometers per hour. So of course the boys at that age are faster than the girls, so more had the chance to do what we counted as a sprint. But in general, no overall differences. But in terms of heart rate, actually, we see that the girls play with higher heart rates compared to the boys. So that's kind of interesting to see that the girls have a very active style of play in all pitch sizes. Same picture here when dividing into heart rate zones, and also in terms of accelerations, we see no differences compared to boys and girls. So what can we tell from this? That maybe we should not be that afraid of letting boys and girls playing together at this age group. I mean, in Denmark we have a lot of small communities, and actually it's especially out there at the countryside that the handball has a great tradition. So a lot of clubs, if you are in a city with maybe 2,000 people in it, you will still have a handball court for sure in most parts of Denmark. But then you have to mix and match boys and girls and ages, and from this it doesn't look seems to be a problem. When looking at the technical activities, we don't see many differences either, except that the boys are scoring more goals and the girls are taking more shots. So either the girls' goalkeepers are very, very good, or the boys are better at this age to finish with their shots. to make conclusions from this, you can see that the team handball are high intensity physical activity, irrespective of court size. We saw very high heart rate profiles in Iceland, and that more distance would cover on the large one. And then in terms of the technical analysis, we saw that increasing the court size changed the activity pattern, whereas manipulating the number of players on a fixed court size doesn't appear to influence the activity pattern. With those that we had in this study, of course, 5 or 6, or 4 or 5. So again, when you look at this and then balancing, it's always about making a game that is interesting for the particular age group, but also in some parts training the tactical and technical abilities that are needed on the full court, that they will become a national team player. So it's give and takes in this consideration. But looking at these results, also for under 9 and under 13 players, we have done similar studies. For the under 13, it's published in Sports. For the under 9, it's currently under review, so hopefully soon out there. But the federation have seen the numbers, and they have decided to reorganize the tournament's game format structure in Denmark. So this year, we will see that the under 11 are playing on the full court, but from next season they will change to what they call the Handball Federation court banning, what we call the medium-sized pitches. So they will change that, and also we can see that the under 9 are playing at that pitch already, and for children at lower ages, they play on that mini court that was on, where you can have 3 in one normal handball court, or you can have 1 medium size and 1 small in one pitch. So also I think that is very attractive when I saw from the video that after Susanna's presentation there was a discussion of who could have the time at the pitches. I mean, using the mini court, you could have 24 players playing at the same time instead of having only 12 players playing in a full court. So if you bring more children playing at the same court at the same time, the only thing that you need more of is balls. And working in schools, sometimes the number of balls is a problem because they get destroyed and everything, but I never met a football or handball club that would say the number of balls is a problem for us. We can always buy more balls. It's not always the option to have more time at the pitch or more pitches, but we can always have more balls. So that was it for me, and you're welcome to have questions either for me or maybe some could go for Jeppe, who's also here in the room representing the Handball Federation, where he works together with Katrine Thor Nielsen, who's the project leader of Children's Handball Federation.
Thank you very much. For sure. Yeah, for sure. Welcome.
Hello. I have a doubt, of course, that the game format is really important, or game form, to teach handball and to develop skills, of course, is really important. And there is a big gap between the mini handball that we all know, 5 against 5 and 7 against 7. There's a big gap in terms of physical effort, physical demand, in terms of technical, tactical, and complexity, and so on and so on. So this is a good approach, my comment, my opinion. But I have a doubt. These game forms that he used, how was the defense? Because the defense type will constrain the attacking options, in both sides, in the side of physical effort and also in technical and tactical demands. So what kind of defense are they using in all of these different defense types? That's my point. One question, sorry, and I have another one. So if you want to answer this first, that's perfect for me. Maybe I missed that information. Well, that's clear for me.
But in this style, they play 3 versus 3
Up.
to the attack.
Yeah, so they play 4 against 3.
Yeah, and they don't wear another shirts, they just wear normal
So,
shirt.
okay.
And the defense are typically defensive marking.
So they are using a more positional play since the beginning. That's the idea. Okay, that is completely different from other countries' approach, where we start with more open game, with more pressure defense, full court pressure defense. So there is an issue between these two types of defense in regard to this topic.
You will see in the phase where the team has the ball here. It's they are 4 here, and then the team would have the chance to put on pressure. But as soon as you play out of that pressure and the goalkeeper is going down to the goal, then you have the 4 versus 3 style.
Okay,
The idea is to have the children to score more goals, having more shots to make.
Of course. Okay, and then the federation decided to change the game forms based on this research. And my question is, did they also took into consideration other technical and tactical aspects, such as the complexity of the game? Because I agree that in 5 against 5, we took out the pivot, so the game is more open, there is more space, although we have the same size for attacking in positional play. So they only based on this data, or there are other for me also very important tactical and technical aspects regarding this change?
There are no structured evaluation apart from these to underline the decision. But of course there are observations and feelings and tradition in the Handball Federation lying under for this. But apparently those who wanted the change, they were more convincing than the others. But I think, I don't know if you here has been a part of these discussions, because as a researcher we have kept totally away from this, of course. We can only base our recommendation in terms of physically load, in terms of training, but also as a health promoting physical activity aspects. And then those technical actions that we decided to include in the studies, that is what we have described. But of course there could be others, like we have been counting duels, but you could also have been counting one-to-one marking sessions, or one-to-one attacking duels, or whatever. We have decided to put that into one category, so duels. Of course you could have decided other technically actions to count, and we didn't do that, but of course those who made these decisions are living their life in handball, so of course a lot of things are affected. But again, I would say that when looking at the absolute values, we can see, okay, they maybe have a lower total distance running, or they maybe run fewer meters, but we have to take the children's capacity into aspect also, because what for me is the same relevant action is not necessarily sprinting 25 meters from here to here. You could also say it's sprinting for 4 seconds, and then under 9-year-old, for 4 seconds will sprint from here to here, where if you're 13, a 4-second sprint is from here to here. So in that way, you could also say, if you count the amount of sprinting time at your maximal speed, then you have to cope with this, because is it the same if you run for 4 seconds or for 25 meters? And for me, I would say letting the physical capacity also be a part of that discussion. They don't have the same capacity as...
But here also the diversity of the movements is important for their development. If they have more, they have to run to different directions with different speeds, is important for developing the motor skills. also in terms of technical options and so on, and distance, fast distance and so on. So I have a lot of English about distance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe some question more? If not, thank you very much. And we are coming to our last presentation in this room. And to motivation and investors in handball. It's yours. Axel Serro.
From zero to hero.
Yeah. We will see.
So, good afternoon or good day. It's my pleasure to present our next paper. Our paper means my research together with Thorsten. So, yesterday we got our paper and research about innovation in handball, and today we would like to present the motives of the investors in handball. So, first of all, we would like to say some words for the relevance. So what are the points? So the market pressure could be one for the growth opportunities for sports clubs on the one hand side and leagues on the other side. So the investors as a new driving force for development, because they come more or less from companies and they have something to do with digital transformation and change management and so on. So the motives in team sports could be diverse, and we would like to find out what it is all about. So the motives in handball could be very interesting for us to know, but right now we got a lack of scientific knowledge right here because there's no research as we know so far, and our research is in progress. So the objective of research and progress is the categorization of motives of investors in handball. So this is the baseline of that. And then we switch over to the categorization in football and soccer. So we try to, we transform that from Mr. Welling, this matrix. So we got 4 classes, more or less the classic investor, the strategic investor, ideological investor, and the protecting or securing investor. So we got the market reference on the one hand side, and market reference and return assumption on the other side. So we would like to put them and categorize them, public examples them, to categorize in those 4 sectors. So first of all, historical more or less investor, like the history shown in Copenhagen and Rhein-Neckar-Löwen. So this is Jesper Nielsen with his company Pandora, and he put a lot of efforts in so on money size in those both teams, and he had a lot of motivation to transfer the players from the one team to the other to show and find out where they play in the best team, and was a more or less successful way to play along. So that was quite successful from the one hand side, but when he decided to put out his money, reinvest his money, the success in the one team or the other team was not as good as any longer. So there is another example in Hamburg. There was the entrepreneur Andreas Rudolph, investor in Team Handball in Hamburg. So he put a lot of efforts, about 25 million euros in 10 years in handball in Hamburg. And, well, as we all know, they were also EHF champions in the Champions League 2014, I think. So we had a lot of consequences there. So insolvents means no longer in the first league. So meanwhile, they're as well in the second league in Germany. A lot of traffic in the media as well. No so good news for handball as well. So we put them in that categorizing of the football metrics of Welling, and more or less Jesper Nielsen with Copenhagen and Rhein-Neckar Löwen would be a strategic investor, and Andreas Rudolph as a former handball player, more or less in the ideological investor side. So then we put a little in case study. This is more or less my example, my club right now, where I'm using to play. So TuS Derschlag, established in 1881, more or less grassroots level. So some facts and figures about Gummersbach, more or less 50,000 inhabitants. A part of Gummersbach is Derschlag, so there used to live more or less 4,000 inhabitants. There are other clubs like Bergneustadt, Gelbe Strombach, Oberwil, so there's a competition about players in handball. Distance to Cologne, more or less 65 kilometers. So this is because I'm living in Cologne, my daily business 3 times a week, and at the weekend again. So historical facts. In the midst of the 70s last century, TuS Derschlag used to play in the first league for 2 years, combined as well with VfL Gummersbach. You all might know them. So after that, they played several years in the second league. And if you would like to have further information, there exists brilliant documentation on YouTube, 45 minutes. It's really, it is worse. So the men team, meanwhile, in the 5th league, Oberliga, current place is the 3rd place. Experienced man in charge right here. So my position is the goalkeeper. So this is a baseline there. Then we got an investor, Stefan Bronjo Group. It's a company dealing in the e-commerce, B2C, B2B, and something to do with the office supplies like printer and so on. So he got about 50 employees, more or less a hidden champion, and is established since 2003. Stefan Bronjo is the guy on the right-hand side, right here. And he's player in the 2nd team of our club. And he got 2 kids in youth teams. And more or less coming to the figures, the investments. So he invested in the seasons in the 3 years, 16-17 up to 18-19, around about 100,000 euros per year. For what we will see on the next slide. On the other side right here. For the youth coordinator and sporting director, in this case Markus Krauthoff, a former first league player in Germany, also popular in Switzerland. There he is, yes. And he is also educated right here at the German Sports University. So also licensed A. So he's more or less a pro coach, meanwhile in Eisenach. But for those 3 years, there was the impulse, and the goal was the acquisition of youth players from around 16 surrounding institutions like schools or kindergarten, and he visited through the week every 16 institutions. And well, the claim is kids should play. So they have different aspects. Playing the handball right there in the school or in the kindergarten. And when he started 3 years ago, there were about 40 kids in Derschlag in the youth teams. And meanwhile, we got about 160 kids in the youth teams. So, and those kids for sure have parents, and as well, they will be club members. And we have other positive effect like voluntary work in the club, and we got a good function handball family there. So meanwhile, we got 3 man teams, 1 woman team, and about 10 youth team. So there's the connections for the presentation. We heard in advance of my presentation, we figured out that the capability of the teams concerning the time in the hall is limited, so we reduce the sizes and we put in more youth teams at the same time in the hall. So in Germany, the donations lead to a tax reduction for giver or the giving company, like the income tax. And so we got about a discount of 20% income per year, about 4% company annual sales. So the motive of Stefan Bronio as an investor in TuS Derschlag is the sustainability of the club, that he is able to play in the second team for more years, and that the development of his kids in the club will be on a good way. So we put that back in our metrics, and so he's more or less a ideological investor like Andreas Rudolph. So those are our research and progress, and the conclusion and implication could be the success in investing in handball is a question of how to design the investor control and the relations to him, and the final result is on grassroots level it is also possible to attract investors for financing all your work. So that's about it. Thank you for listening. Any questions? This is also
Thank you very much.
Contacts.
I think some questions maybe for this last presentation about investments.
For example.
No, in the break then.
All right. Then thank you very much.
Thank you. So we are coming to the end. Who is Helmut? It's your turn now.
I passed this task on to my young colleague, Marta, accompanied by the chairman of EHF.
Nice. This microphone.
Werden wahrscheinlich so aufgeschrieben.
Ja, mogę zacząć.
To już można ten, a ja idę po
As you see, this is Santa Claus gifts. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please come closer from the last row. Now we are just start with closing ceremony very briefly, because some of you is in a hurry because of the travel schedule, train or planes. So finally we reached the end. After 2 days, yesterday and today we had an opportunity to listen a very wide spectrum of topics, including not only coaching or medical aspect of handball, but also different forms of handball, like beach handball, like e-handball, like wheelchair handball finally, which is a very important thing also for us, because this is one of the key topic also for Methods Commission. And I'm pretty sure that everybody could find out something interesting, which will be very interesting and very useful in your daily work. I would like to thank the organizing committee, the people from European Handball Federation who were involved in the preparation of the conference and the organization of the conference, like Helmut and Marta mostly, and also for local organizing committee from University of Cologne. Stefan, on your hands. Thank you for yesterday evening. I think that everybody is satisfied after yesterday evening, yesterday dinner. It was a nice place, excellent food, and also we had an opportunity to share the opinion, the ideas in much comfortable and relaxed circumstances. So thank you for that. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty satisfied with this conference. It's of course because not only the topic, but because of you participants, because so I would like to thank for your active participation, for your punctuality and discipline, which were very, very important when our program, as you know, was very tough with 10 minutes presentation. For oral presentation, it's over 50 papers was presented as an oral presentation. It was really, really a tough conference, but I'm pretty satisfied, and I hope that most of you share my feelings and opinion concerning this conference. So before we start with certificates, just see closing. Come on, we are waiting for you, please. Firstly, I wish you all the best in the future, safe trip home, and I hope that we will meet each other in 2 years, the 6th conference, if you are satisfied with this one. I don't know where, but for sure we will try to organize the next conference, because this will be also a great opportunity to celebrate something, like 6th anniversary, for example. So thank you very much once again, and let's start with certificates. A part of the certificates, you also receive a booklet concerning, surprisingly, handball. Yeah. Thank you. Marta, could you help me with this?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Agata Adina.
Please.
Khaled Al-Shari. Just to make it clear, I will do all my best with pronouncing the surnames, but if I do a mistake, please don't be mad at me.
Not easy.
Richard André. Already gone. Manuel Armenteros. Already left.
Okay.
You will take for him. Tim Arntz. Martin Barendrecht. That goes fast. Stefanie Klatt. Sorry.
Martin.
Stefanie Klatt. Maxim Kronfeld.
Somebody is coming. Somebody is coming. And Maxim? Maxim. Thank you. Thank you.
Nicklas Kurt. Marta Larsen. Stanisław Beliński. Anders Eriksrud Bergan.
No, Andres.
Miguel Betancor. Lasse Bosen.
As you notice, this is an alphabetic order. All right, Lasse. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Congratulations.
Marta Bon. Józef Buderba.
No chance for Joseph.
Ole Brun Andersen.
Ole. This is always hard to pronounce the name. Thank you very much.
Nicklas Burmeister.
Nicklas.
Maria Cadence Roca. Ah, sorry.
Maria is coming.
Maria is coming.
Ah, Maria.
Yvonne Carneiro. Ana Maria Carvalho. Linda Coppens. Thank you. Yannick Denis.
We'll make you a picture, you know. Congratulations to you. Thank you.
Thorsten Dum. Yannick Durselen. Ahmed Elkot. Sabrina Erdrich. Maria Luisa Estriga. Frowin Fasold. Juan Fidalgo. Roger von Ribas. Yun Fukuda. Alex Guerra.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Carmen George.
That was pretty smart.
Marina Gilar. Matthias Hinz.
Be careful. Not fast.
Thank you very much.
Therese Hornstrup. Gabriela Horvat.
What a nice executive committee member. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Alice Iannaccone. Shiro Ichimura. Toshihiro Ito.
Thank you.
Luis Gonzaga Jaquim.
Thank you.
Piotr Kaczmarek.
I guess he came from Poland.
I guess so. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claude Karcher, sorry. Robert Kaspar. Balázs Kincse. Edwin Keepers. Lior Lava. Brigitta Lindholm. Katrin Lu.
Katrin is coming?
Katrin is coming.
Thank you.
Patrick Luik. Davide Malfa. Poncho. Carmen Machado. Laurentiu Nuciu Manu. Lars Boysen Michalsik.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Uroš Mohorič. Sonia Morgado.
No.
Andrzej Nicklas. Jarle Nordby-Bo. Csaba Ökrös. Martin O'Reilly. Rita Pereira. Jessica Persson. Atanas Pop Stefania. Susanna Powoś.
Susanna.
Thank
you, Susanna.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Carlos Prieto Martos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Denis Radlich.
Dennis is coming. Thank you, Dennis.
Deborah Zaip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pedro Sequeira.
Pedro, slowly. However, we have future handball button of you.
Thank you, Pedro. Axel Ciro.
Short wait. Thank you so much. It is really good.
Antanas Skarbalius. Bartosz Sławiński. Hermasi Suhail.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jakub Stefaniak. Yasunobu Suzuki.
No Suzuki.
Sebastian Szwajca.
Sebastian.
Franciszek Taborski.
Where is Franta? Ah, Franta left. He was in a hurry.
Suli Taha.
Picture with you. Okay. Thank you very much.
That's a difficult one, so sorry for wrong pronunciation. Rauf Tarek. Peter Terčić. Wiktor Tremps.
Somebody is coming. Somebody is coming. It's Victor?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sebastian Urich.
Nie ma kolejnego Bastiana.
Guido van Erp. Shibu Varghese. Jon Vigosson. Herbert Wagner.
Yesterday evening was very heavy.
Thanks.
Stefan Walzer.
If somebody complains yesterday evening, this is a good opportunity. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you very much.
Aina Anfisen Westgard.
Nobody kissed me.
Grzegorz Więcław.
If you want to kiss somebody on the back.
Dzięki. Ricardo Wilhelm.
Yes, Ricardo is coming. Powinien być dla mnie z mojego
Thank you. Maike Willemsen.
Lady is coming.
Maike is coming. No to zaraz. Thank you. Is there anyone who has not received the certificate?
Yeah.
I will send it to you later on.
And myself. So it's over, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your participation. Safety home. We will see, hopefully, we will see each other in 2 years for the next scientific conference. Thank you very much.
Just the very last organizational issue. I will send you an email just to remind that I will kindly ask you to let me know whether we are allowed to publish your presentation or not. Please send me the message only if you do not agree to publish it in the documentation. Or maybe if you want to change something, please send me the version I can publish and make it public to all of you. Thank you.
Nie, zabrał mi, no, dziękuję.
I have another book for my library for the university. I would appreciate very much.